I am so excited to invite yet another amazing guest for an epic conversation on the Life at Full Blast podcast. Welcome to the show, Terence, all the way from Malaysia. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today.
I'm excited too, Cindy. Thanks for having me on the show.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So, I was reading your bio. You and I have never met, and this is one of the my favorite parts of the Life at Full Blast podcast is I get to meet people from all over the world, from all walks of life, and I literally just get on a show and start talking to you. So I've known you for
It's
about
wonderful.
45 seconds.
Maybe 1.5 minutes.
Yeah, about that. About that. I know that it's very early in the morning for you, so thank you for joining us at such an early hour. You probably haven't even had your morning coffee yet.
No, but I do have my Celsius drink, which is supposed to be healthy and as an energy drink. So yeah,
There you
it's good.
go.
I'm good to go.
I love it. I love it. So, Terrence, when I was reading through your bio, one of the things that stood out to me was how you've been an entrepreneur at heart and you've built more than one business, but you've had some setbacks. Can you share a little bit about what does it mean to be an entrepreneur at heart? Let's start there.
Good question. I was just thinking about it yesterday, and for some reason, I never really considered ever going back to get a job despite the
Hmm.
setbacks. And I've been an entrepreneur since the year 2000, so this is like 24 years now.
Hmm.
And despite the many setbacks and times where you're like, oh, geez, how am I going to pay the bills? I've never actually thought of, hey, I should get a job, despite the fact that
Hmm.
other people around me are going like, why don't you get a job? I'm like, oh, that's an interesting
Is
idea,
that
but
even a
no,
possibility?
no. Yeah, I'll stick to what I'm doing. And,
Yeah,
and
I
yeah,
love
so that's
that.
one thing that I've always that's my idea anyway. Maybe
Mhm.
I just have the blinders on, but yeah, it's just been like that for me.
Yeah, I love that. I use the phrase all the time. I'm officially unemployable because I've been an entrepreneur since 2016 and I can't even imagine the idea of going back to a job. Like it just doesn't compute for me. So I get where you're coming from. I love that description that I never even thought it was a possibility. That's awesome. So you mentioned that you've had some setbacks. Let's talk about that because being an entrepreneur, it's not always rainbows and kittens. So, what happened? What's one of the biggest setbacks that you experienced?
Okay, I would say the biggest one. This is when I was still living in Australia, and I was a property developer back then. And this was going back to like year 2000, where I started investing in properties, got some traction, kind of caught the trend up and the wave up, made lots of money, got into bigger and bigger developments. And by the time the GFC rolled around 2008, for those of us who are old enough to remember, basically what happened in a nutshell, I was into a lot of projects, and suddenly the funding just
Yep.
all dried up. No funding available. Banks are just shutting down the doors. And
Hmm.
if you had any developments, you were basically screwed. And we were caught in that position. We had all this millions of dollars of developments going on, and we had no funding to continue the projects. We couldn't sell them, and we were just in a big, big bad place.
Yep.
And yeah, basically, cut it short. I got wiped out, like millions of dollars gone down drain pretty much
Mm.
overnight, right? And that was a
Wow.
huge setback, right? So from being net worth millions of dollars to basically going to negative literally overnight
Wow.
and had to declare bankruptcy and everything. So that was
Hmm.
probably my biggest thing. And it took me quite a few years to get out of it. And
Yeah.
it's not just about financially, it's about mentally and emotionally
Hmm. Hmm.
being able to think big again. It took me years.
Yeah.
And because I used to think really big, right? I'm just going, yeah, big projects, everything.
Yeah.
And then inside in mind, you're just thinking, oh, it's maybe because I thought too big. That's why I failed.
Hmm.
And that thing keep needing to work on it. And yeah, it's just
Hmm.
been a process, to be honest. But it's been good. Like, now I have an agency with like 10 people employed and all that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. So it's all good now. But yeah, it was
Bounce back.
struggled. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what that would feel like. I mean, I've claimed bankruptcy, but never from a place of millions and millions of dollars and, people that I was supporting and things like that. But what was the thought that went through your mind when you found out that you had to claim bankruptcy?
The claiming of the bankruptcy thing was actually a relief in a sense
Ah,
because I had actually, for over a year, I had to tried my best to fight it off and
hmm,
find a way to get through it. But until a point in time where I had to say, look, there's I've done everything I could, and there's nothing that works. There is only this path left. And after I did that, I felt like, in a sense, it's like, okay, it's a clean slate. All right, let's start over again, kind of
yeah.
thing. So
Mhm.
in that sense, yeah, there was a bit of embarrassment, a bit of shame and all that from, some people. But for me personally, I'm like going, okay, well, this is like a fresh start, right? And as you know, like most entrepreneurs, most millionaires, entrepreneurs actually go through it once or twice in their lifetime.
Yes.
And now I wear this badge of honor kind of thing.
Right. Check. All done.
Yep. Been there, done
Oh my
that.
gosh. I love that
Next.
you say that, that moment of claiming the bankruptcy is almost like this surrender of just like, okay, I've done everything I can, and now let go and let God kind of expression a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So what did you do with your clean slate?
All right. So what I did at that point in time, I actually had another business, which was a book publishing business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I saw it was doing kind of okay, but not super fantastic. It was kind of like just breaking even.
Mm-hmm.
So I told my team, my wife, and I said, look, I'm just going to focus 100% on this because there's nothing else. So we focused on that. And pretty much in the 2 or 3 years that I focused on it, I brought it for basically tripled the business. And
Yep.
that kind of like got me back on the game again until
Yeah.
Amazon decided to say, hey, we're just going to offer self publishing for free. And so that kind of
Mm.
wiped out that business. But in the
Mm-hmm.
meantime, I had kind of like, it was kind of like I kind of grew tired of that business in a sense. It was not my real passion kind of thing. Because my real
Mm-hmm.
passion since university days has always been in marketing.
Right.
So I had already started the seeds for my marketing agency already. So
Mm-hmm.
when that business had to close, and I saw it coming, when it closed down, maybe like 5 or 6 years later, I had my business, this marketing agency running already. So
Yeah.
it was a kind of a smooth transition.
You were prepared for that one.
I was prepared for it.
Yeah.
Saw the signs coming. I knew I couldn't fight Amazon. I'm just this little guy.
Yeah.
No matter how much positive thinking there is, like, yeah, it's kind of hard to find Amazon.
Yeah, I love that. It's so cool to watch, to listen to your story and see the transition from moving through different businesses, different setbacks, but still bouncing back every time. And really, what it's led you to is the work that you are meant to be doing, the work that you love and that inspires you and you're passionate about. So I love that the universe was kind of like, yeah, no, you need to go this way. And some of those lessons were hard, obviously, but I love that you're able to do the work that you love now. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, I think it's such a great point you bring up that maybe it's like, hey, that's your life purpose. And I maybe if I were less stubborn, I would have seen that earlier and made less mistakes along the way. But
Oh,
hey,
us
that's life,
humans,
right?
eh?
That's the process.
I don't think you're alone in the stubbornness. Our human ego really likes to hang on to stuff. Absolutely.
Yes, I agree with that.
Oh my gosh. So tell us about the business that you are in now. Tell us about the work that you're doing.
Okay, so when I started my marketing agency, the original plan was to kind of consult for people, but I kind of landed a client that was into the whole seminar thing, right? So he organized
Mhm.
seminars and he was back then, this was going back to 2014, 2013,
Mhm.
2014. he was basically going like, let's advertise in newspapers, let's send direct mail to get people to come to the seminar, right? This is a free
Yeah, old
seminar.
school.
And I'm like, have you considered like Facebook ads? He
Have you
going,
heard of
what's
the
that?
internet?
Yeah. Have you heard of the internet? Yeah. Oh no, not really. So I'm like, oh, why don't you give it a try, right? And so
Mhm.
we did that, and voila, we kind of filled the room at 70% less cost. And
Yeah.
he's like, oh, this is great.
Hmm.
So from that one client, we wrote into many more clients because word got out that I did this, and it's kind of a specialized skill.
Hmm.
And so today we kind of like have become a specialist in putting bums on seats, as I like to call it,
Yep.
for seminars and webinars and challenges. So yeah, that's how I kind of wrote into it, and that's what I do now, and we kind of just specialize in that.
I love that. I love that. So that was 2014, before someone had even heard of the internet. That's fun. Um,
Yep.
so what happened to your business in 2020?
Great question. And before 2020, our business was 100% marketing seminars, so live in-person events, all
Yeah.
that stuff. And we were filling rooms of hundreds of people for all our clients. And 2020 rolls around, and we're like, gosh, everybody stopped doing seminars. And we're like,
Hmm.
oh, where our business basically went to zero because
Yep.
nobody's doing seminars, thanks to Mr. COVID and his gang. So we're like, okay, what do we do? And we're like, well, the most logical thing for us to pivot to is webinars right now.
Hmm.
So we pivot into webinars because pretty much the principles are the same.
Yeah.
And yeah, we kind of like, in a sense, got lucky. And thankfully, I was less stubborn this time. So we got into webinars quick, and we kind of rode the wave, and the business actually grew in that year after the huge setback from 100 to zero and then back to like 150 or something, right? Just
Yeah.
figuratively speaking. So, and then we just continued growing from there. And now we actually, most of our business is webinars and challenges, online challenges. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that just showcases that you learn from your lessons and your mistakes.
Goodbye.
You let go of being stubborn, and you're
Mhm.
resilient and willing to pivot.
Yeah. I think resilience is so important, but yet not being stubborn is also important. That's a
Yes.
balance there, right?
Yeah, there's a line between, determined and like willing to do what it takes versus stubborn.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So if people were interested in, putting bums in seats, as you put it, say they're running a 5-day challenge or a webinar or something like that, what would be the first thing that they do when they come to work with you?
Okay, I think the first thing they need to do is, I would say that they need to have a good foundation in how to present and close at events, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
seminars and webinars. Because when people come to me, they should be ready to scale. And scaling means using paid ads, and that's not for the faint-hearted. So
No.
you really need to have like your webinar down pat. You need to know your conversion rates before you scale with ads.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing I recommend. And for people who are not at that stage yet, I would say like, maybe that seminar webinar funnel is not for you yet. Maybe you can use a different funnel, like a VSL funnel, right? Where you're using paid ads and you're getting appointments. So more of an appointment funnel. So VSL is a video sales letter kind of thing. And that's less low risk. And from there, you can kind of like improve your messaging and really understand
Mm.
what the target market wants before you
Mhm.
scale into webinars and also get the cash flow up as well, of course.
Yeah, I love it.
So I would say the first step would be have a chat first to determine where you are,
Hmm.
and then from there decide what funnel you need to have in your business at this stage. And I've actually written a whole book about it. Like there's
Hmm.
8 different funnels that coaches can implement in their business. And I believe it's at leadsearch.com or leadsearchbook.com.
Okay.
Um, Sorry, just one of them. I'm sure I'll find that out and send it to you so you can have it in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll make sure that if we can find out how people can get a hold of you in the show notes for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a full book, like 200 pages, detailing each funnel. So that
Okay.
would be a good start for people deciding what is the next step for their business and how to get clients.
Perfect. I love that. Yeah. So it's interesting because, there's so many different ways of doing business on the internet. And I really subscribe to organic marketing more than anything. And so I teach my
Mm,
audience how to use social media, especially, but also email marketing to really just, and develop that messaging, right? Because I agree, it's a risk to run ads if you don't know your messaging. And so I feel like you would be the next step once you figure out organic marketing to then come to you and say, okay, now I'm ready. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, it's not something that, unless you got a few $1 million in your bank account, it's not something you jump into straight away and start running ads, right? Get your
Yeah.
messaging right. And I think what you're teaching is perfect because people need to really know their audience, see what works organically first before they
Hmm.
use paid ads. It's like kind of like uh, adding fuel to the fire, right? So
Yeah.
if you don't have the right material and you're adding fuel to it, you're just basically wasting all that fuel and burning nothing, right? You're creating smoke.
Oh my gosh, I love that you're saying this. So, to all of the gurus in the social media world that say, I'll teach you how to run ads, but they're not actually saying that you need to understand your messaging first, what do you have to say to them?
Well, I wouldn't condemn them, but I would say like proceed with caution.
Yes.
And I would say as well that paid ads can also be a way for you to test your messaging, right? So
Mm.
you don't have to spend a lot of money, but you can say, for example, you could look at your organic posts and say, okay, let's put together my 10 best organic posts, put a
Hmm.
bit of money behind each of them, like $10 for each of them, and see
Hmm.
which one gets the most engagement. If you want to decide like what is the pain of my target audience that they respond to,
Hmm.
what are the topics that people are actually interested in, using a bit of
Mm.
paid ads there might help you to validate your thinking and
Right.
what actually your audience will respond to.
Right. So it's like
Yeah.
kind of doing paid market research in a way.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
right? Because ChatGPT maybe might be able to spit out like, oh, these are the great pain points that you should
Right.
use, but until you validate it, nobody really knows, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I love that. Yeah. And I've tried to run ads in the past with
Mhm.
an experience that wasn't great because my messaging was not great. And, the person I was working with sends all these questionnaires and I'm trying to fill it out. And I'm like, I don't know the answers to these things. Right. So why run ads if you don't know those answers? So I love that you're the next step once you figure that piece out.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what's next for Terrence? What are you excited about in your business and where you're growing?
Great question. And I had to sit down and think about it. And really, the bottom line is maybe less is better because as an entrepreneur, we always have this shiny object syndrome, right? And we're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's a great idea. I can make a ton of money from that. And then,
Hmm.
oh, this will be great add on to my existing business. And then spend like a month or two getting distracted and doing stuff that
Hmm.
at the end doesn't really work. So for me right now, the key is really to double down on what we're doing and just become so good at what we do that people can't ignore us,
Yeah,
and just adding more clients to what we're doing right now. So
I
that is
love
the
it.
next step rather than chasing the next shiny object, I would say. Focus is the key.
I love it. And I know for sure that there are people in my audience right now who are going, oh my God, Cindy's probably giddy with excitement because he said the word focus. I say it all the time. Focus, focus, focus. That's where your results live.
But
I
I mean,
love it.
if for people who are just starting off, focus is important, but also you need to know when to pivot if necessary as well, because
Yeah,
you could just be focusing on the wrong thing as well.
right.
So
Yeah, the
and that's where maybe
definition.
like a coach like you will help them out, right? To say, hey, this is maybe not such a great idea
Yes,
that you're
that's why.
coming up with Amazon or whoever it is.
Right? That's why I always say every coach needs a coach because we can't see our own shit. We really can't see
Yeah.
when we are being stubborn. And sometimes we're just like, but if I just stay over here and what you're heading toward is disaster. So that's why I always agree with having a coach. Absolutely. Terrence, I have loved this conversation. Thank you so much for being on the show today. And I'll definitely make sure that people know how to find you in the show notes. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience before we close the show?
Well, I think for people in the coaching industry, what is also important is to create that flywheel that helps your business to grow. Even for any agency like myself, right? You need to be able to eventually, have that flywheel or that system, predictable funnel where you put in $1 and get back $3 at the other end, right? So initially do the organic stuff and all that, but when you're able to create that flywheel, because that is what's going to help any business to get to the next level. So that's what I would say. Because yeah, otherwise you can kind of like get stuck at a certain level
Yeah.
without going to the next level.
Awesome. Awesome. Great advice, Terrence. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
All right. Thanks a lot, Cindy. Thanks for having me on the show. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. My pleasure.